And we are live for this episode. We are talking everything about the MLB Winter Meetings, the big trade that happened with Juan Soto, the Otani talk, Betts and Harper getting our Phillies Dodger takes in there. But yeah, Jake, it's good to get another episode in here. This time it's just me and you, so
New
more people
setup.
can hear our voices. Got a little bit of a new setup for Jake over there, and a little bit of a new layout for this episode as well. But lots of stuff to talk about, even though there was very little action this winter meetings. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, man. It's we dug around a little bit to find these topics. And so it was a harder episode, but yeah, we got some good things to talk about. I think we have some interesting, original ideas as some other people don't like to think, but we'll do our thing.
Yeah. Honestly, before the winter meeting started, I would say the biggest news was probably Dave Roberts was all over these winter meetings. And before he had the Otani blurb, they questioned him about Mookie Betts' role for 2024. And surprisingly, he said that he is penciled in to be the primary second baseman. And to me, that was a little bit shocking just because I like the platoon thing that we had going last year because due to the injuries and everything that was happening with the Dodgers roster, we kind of needed Mookie Betts to be that super utility guy because, not only was he playing in right field, he was playing at second base. He had a couple games at shortstop, all around athletic guy. But the Phillies are also going through a similar situation as well, and that is Bryce Harper. I believe it was about a month ago where the Phillies said that he will be the primary first baseman. And even I was a little shocked from that as well, that he only played about half a season there fielding wise, and he looked pretty comfortable over there. But let's get into the Harper part of this. What do you think about Bryce Harper taking over as the full-time first baseman? Do you like the move? Does it make sense? What are your takes?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't expect it, like you said. A guy like Harper, we talked about it. Harper is not going to come in here and be like, "Hey, Reese, get out, man. Like this is my spot now." I think it was definitely an organizational thing. I think the constant stress on the shoulder and the elbow out in right field, and even like you're going to talk about with Mookie, even other parts of the body like his back and things like that. I think they're just being overly careful with him. I think it was more of a front office and managerial thing than it was really Bryce Harper on his own. But I think it's just nice for him. He said it again. We're having this big talk about him wanting to play into his 40s and possibly getting an extension. If he wanted to do that, playing 10, 15 years in right field is definitely not the way to do it. So yeah, it sucks that he's going to be taken away. Rhys Hoskins, he's probably going to be gone. But I think for the overall, impact that he's going to make from that position, it's a smart move.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the biggest thing I'm taking away from both of these guys is because if we go backwards like 5 or 6 years, like Mookie Betts and Bryce Harper are like two of the top right fielders in baseball, whether it's offense or defense. And now we're kind of getting to the point where they're both in their 30s, and now you're starting to see a little bit of a shift in their careers. That way they can prolong their careers, honestly.
Exactly.
And I just didn't expect it to happen for both players so soon. But in terms of Harper's case, you're right. He had Tommy John surgery, taking throws from right field. It's a demanding position out there in the outfield. You got to be super athletic, super in shape. And then the throws from out there as well. That's the reason why they pivoted him to first base. And credit to him for just getting used to it extremely fast and being a big piece in that Phillies lineup, because you mentioned it, Hoskins, he's more than likely not coming back to Philly. And he was a big piece that was missing in that lineup for all of 2023. And Harper pretty much filled that void. And it allowed his team to be in the best position to win, because now you're getting the bats of Castellanos, Schwarber, and all these guys to get their due every day. And Harper, it just sounds like a team player. That's what I take away from both of these guys, is that they're team players. They don't care about the spotlight. and they will switch positions. They will go around the diamond, anything that gives their team the best chance to win. I also just find it funny just because Mookie Betts, like he was drafted as a second baseman. He's always said, even though he's a 6-time Gold Glover, he said that second baseman, that's his baby. He wishes that he made a career out of it over there. But when he got called up with the Red Sox, Dustin Pedroia was there, and they needed a way to get Mookie Betts in the lineup. In terms of Betts, I understand it because we were talking about before the show. We were like, what injury really kind of affected Betts? And in 2021, he had bone spurs in his hip, and it really affected his overall play. You could argue that his worst season in a Dodger uniform was probably the 2021 season, where he was pretty much up and down since that injury. And since then, we've seen a lot of things go off of that. His speed's down, his range is down, and those are two things that you definitely need in the outfield. And in 2023 specifically, on Baseball Savant, his numbers were in the negative. They were all in the light blues, where you don't want that anymore, where traditionally he was in those bright reds and the 99th percentiles. It just wasn't looking like that this year. But moving him to second, it allows him to stay healthy. It allows to take some of that pressure off him for his body, to where even Dave Roberts alluded to it. He said, this gives us the best chance to win. It allows us to have roster flexibility with the 26-man roster, allowing Jason Hayward to go into right and then doing the lefty-righty splits. But honestly, if Mookie Betts wants to stay at second base, he probably kind of runs the shots in that regard, and they'll probably do anything for him.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, actually just looking this up right now. Both 31 years old, born 9 days apart. I mean, 31 in baseball terms, when you've been playing since you're an infant, is not young anymore for these guys. While like Mookie Betts was such a high impact guy, definitely more than Harper was in right field. You said it with his Baseball Savant numbers and his in depth stats. You can definitely tell that he's been taking that drop, that step down. Harper, I think it's more proactive. I think, yeah, his arm went and he had Tommy John. But right now, if you put him out in right field, I'm sure he's throwing 90%, at least 85% of what he used to. But what is he going to do in 3-4 years? You don't want to take that risk now, especially when you have these guys locked up for such big contracts. I think it's a little bit different. Mookie's probably, like you said, settling down, more of enjoying his middle infield days. Harper's more of a proactive thing, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think honestly, just the biggest shocking thing with Betts is just how steep of a decline it was. We're looking at, in 2020, he had a sprint speed at 28.3. In 2023, it's at 27.2, which it's not looking like a lot, but now he is in the 47th percentile in sprint speed, which is below league average, which is shocking for a guy who's been traditionally known as, he's not going to steal you like 60 bags a year like a Trey Turner or a Ronald Acuna Jr., but he still was no slouch in the base pass. And even I've noticed it's been a little concerning, because it just seems like either if he can't beat out a ground ball, or if he even tries to steal second, it's kind of like praying that he gets there in time. And then even the quality in outfield defense, I feel like this year we saw a steep decline, and I kind of attributed that to saying, well, maybe it's just because he's playing at least 3 different positions throughout the year, and that's extremely hard to play them all at an elite level. But obviously, I think the Dodgers probably saw more of the health reasons, and they probably just feel like second base is his best bet. Same thing with Harper. Even his defensive peripherals on Baseball Savant weren't pretty either in the outfield. But we use the eye test sometimes in baseball, and when you use the eye test, I still think Harper is a terrific right fielder. I still think Mookie Betts is a Gold Glove right fielder. But now we're getting to the point in their careers where this is where they're going to start transitioning. That way they can play for the long haul, because we already mentioned it. Both these guys still have a long time left on their contracts, multi years, and we even have Harper talking about he wants to get a contract extension to his 40s. And before we segue to that, I kind of want to get your opinion on that. Do you like the idea? Like, what do you think's Harper's angle? I've seen some people saying that it's maybe him trying to get a little bit of a pay raise, because me and you have already argued, and I think it's pretty much well known around baseball that Bryce Harper is extremely underpaid.
Exactly. Um, we've seen this before. Scott Boras, he is the devil in baseball. I don't know, man. It's a smart thing to do. He's at the top of the world right now. If you ask any Phillies fan and most baseball fans, it's like what guy would you want in the most clutch spots? I mean, last 2 years, other than the end of the NLCS last year, he's gotten every hit. I mean, you come up with 2 outs in the ninth inning, and you got a guy on base. Harper gets your hit. It's smart for him to do that. I don't know how real the things are. I think it's more of a Boris agency, momentum grab. Let me make my money now so I can like retire in 10 years and then just keep getting paid out like Bobby Bonilla or something. But I don't know, because the first base also prolongs his career. So maybe he's like, hey, a lot of times first you move to first base, you become a bigger hitter. You don't worry about fielding as much. What if he, next 3 years he hits 40 home runs? Nobody would know. I think right now he's at the top of the world, so you can't really blame him for it.
Yeah, I honestly, when I read the reports, I was like, why would the Phillies entice this? Because I feel like I know Bryce Harper's beloved in Philly. I love Bryce Harper, and I'm not even a Phillies fan. But we talked about before, he's an icon in Philly now, arguably probably the most likable athlete in Philadelphia in terms of embodying what Philadelphia sports is. I pretty much would
Yes.
look out of all the Phillies, like Philadelphia sports, I look at Harper as that big guy because all he wants to do is just win and represent the name on the front rather than the name on the back. And that's kind of what he alluded to. I forget who reported the article, but he basically just said he wants to end his entire career there. He does want to play into his 40s. He's made that known a few times. And, if you're going to, I feel like he can still realistically get a couple $1 million raise per year and then give him like another 3 years on top of that. And you're still evenly distributing that money. And no matter how you shake it, he's still going to get underpaid because, I bet you if you look at it now, his market value is probably like $45 million. And how much is he getting paid? Only like, it's like 28, right?
Yeah, it's like 27, 25 or something dumb.
Yeah. So I definitely, I feel like the Phillies would probably be open to it just because of who he is and how much money he's already made the team. And he can be one of those guys, you're at the point now when he retires and he makes the Hall of Fame, he's more than likely wearing a Phillies cap. So you might as well just go with that storyline. So that's just my 2 cents on it. I feel like at first I didn't understand it and I don't know why the Phillies would entertain the idea. But then I was like, from a non-baseball perspective, I assume him and John Middleton have an extremely good relationship. I feel like they probably get something done, if not this year, sometime down the line. Maybe when it gets to the tail end of the deal. But that contract that he signed back then, it just seems like a huge bargain.
Yeah, well, Tim said it right there. 4 for 160 from the Dodgers back in 2019. He'd be getting another payday right now. He'd be making his $400 million. But it's tough because I think not necessarily about what he's doing at that age. I think it's like John Middleton said when we made the World Series in 2022. We underpaid you. Like if he got an extension, those 3-4 years would be just, hey, this is your $80 million that you should have had the last 13 years that you didn't really get.
Yeah, I mean, and Tim from Dodgers 2080 put it in the chat. If Bryce Harper only signed that 4/160 deal that the Dodgers offered, he'd be testing free agency already. And it kind of just, I feel like at the end of the day, it kind of just explains like what I mentioned earlier. I feel like Harper, while he is going to get his money, he still probably just cares about that team, and it explained a lot. Taking a long-term deal, no trade clause. That kind of just embodies who Bryce Harper is. But enough of Harper and Betts talk. Let's get to the golden boy around this MLB offseason, and that is Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani. The Ohtani talk has been all over the place. A bunch of different takes about how this offseason's kind of been revolving around him. Some people are very hostile towards that. But Shohei Ohtani, it's really down to the last, you could say 3 teams, but in my mind, I think it's still just the 2 teams that have been reported on the most. And those 3 teams are the Dodgers, of course, the Blue Jays, who are surprising, and then I would still probably put the Cubs, Giants, Angels all in that little third tier territory. Um, are you surprised that Ohtani didn't sign before the winter meetings or during the winter meetings?
I mean, he can uh, objectively he can do whatever he wants. I mean, like none of these teams are going to argue. Even with like the things that are coming out with the reports, obviously we're going to talk about it with Dave Roberts and everything of not wanting to leak meetings and things like that. If a guy, if fucking Eduardo Rodriguez came into LA and was like, "Hey, I don't want you to report that we had a meeting," they would have been like, "Okay, what's wrong with this dude?" But since it's Ohtani, everybody's okay with it. Everybody's like, "Okay, whatever. We'll just bend over for Ohtani." Like I said, he can do whatever he wants. I don't see. I think he knew this was coming for a long time. I don't know the back end of it. There's probably still some bidding. I don't know how much the monetary value matters to him. It doesn't seem like a lot, but again, people are grasping at straws now, man. It's been a long time that people have been looking at this Ohtani thing. So, you hear things like, oh, Ohtani doesn't really care about the money. But then you hear rumors that like the Angels are still in. And it's like, okay, well, if he doesn't care about the money, why would he go back to the team where he just lost the last, 5-6 years? I think there's a lot of, shade and a lot of fog up on things about Ohtani. It's just, I just don't know what he's waiting for.
Yeah, I honestly, it's kind of surprising that I really thought he was going to sign during the winter meetings. I even thought there was a possibility that he signed before. And we talked yesterday on the Blue Lows podcast about kind of just how MLB free agency is in the offseason when we compared it to the NBA and the NFL, where free agency is done in like 48 hours. Like
Right.
all the big dogs are gone. And I think those leagues play off of it because instead of guessing where the player is going to be all winter, they're during their off season, they kind of play with the idea of like, all right, the Lakers got LeBron James, and how's the team going to look? Like they can start playing about the team and everything like that. With the MLB, it's like the polar opposite. Teams are continuously guessing, all right, what's the team going to look like, and what's our plan if we don't get option A, B, or C, and like where are we pivoting to? And I honestly think the secrecy thing has just been blown out of proportion. Dave Roberts, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. He's been all over these winter meetings for a few reasons, but the biggest one was that all he did was mention that the Dodgers met with Ohtani. Obviously, the team that has been linked to Ohtani for 2 years, that has set up everything on their team, whether it's payroll, roster construction, it's been all building for Shohei Ohtani. And Dave Roberts really didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion. And a lot of the media members, the beat reporters, they all sided with him, saying, we applaud Dave Roberts for at least just giving us something to write about. Obviously, I know it's like, yes, these guys in the media are mad because they want something to write about. They need the clicks. They want to write the stuff. And you're not writing much when Ohtani's pretty much playing a game of detective and you got to play hide and seek with him to see what's happening. But I think it's been reported through leaks.
Right.
I mean, people are doing investigative journalism, tracking planes from Florida to Anaheim to see where Ohtani and the Blue Jays are meeting. Like we know he met with the Giants, we know he met with the Dodgers now, and then we know he met with the Blue Jays in Florida. Just say it. They didn't get into any contract details. They didn't get into. I feel like that's the stuff that can't be leaked. That's the stuff you don't want to leak. If that stuff's getting out, like if they offered a contract, and then I got Ken Rosenthal saying, well, apparently the Blue Jays offered him 10 years, $550 million with incentives. Like that's when like Ohtani, even though I would be like, all right, well, who's talking? Like who's leaking this stuff? Like I wanted all this stuff to be, I didn't want any of this stuff getting out. In terms of the winter meetings, a reporter asking Dave during his presser about Ohtani, I agree with him just saying, you know what? We did meet with Ohtani. It wasn't a sales pitch. It was more of us just getting to know each other, but it's obvious that he's been on the top of their mind. In terms of surprising that he didn't sign, I really did think he was going to sign during the winter meetings just because I feel like since everyone was there, everyone could have gotten an idea of what they were going to do. But it's just him taking his time. And I just hope he signs sooner rather than later, because it's not just Otani's market that slowed up. It's the entire free agents market, and it all pivots down from him. It's all up to Otani. He sets the market. Even though there's no player like him, he still sets that precedent, going all the way down from, especially in the DH market. Justin Turner tweeted out something about it too, defending Dave Roberts, So I just feel like he just needs to sign sooner than later.
Yeah, like Greg said in the comments, it's just annoying, the silence. Like, why is it a secret? It's everybody else is not a secret, and nothing is like for sure. I mean, we talked about it last week. Oh, Otani's going to sign within the next 3 days, and then 3 days later, oh, Otani's going to sign within the next 4 days, and it's like 4 days later, oh, Otani's going to sign. Why? Like, we don't know anything just because he doesn't want like these to know that they met. Like, I don't understand why it's such like a big deal what teams you're meeting with. It's all about your decision. I mean, I'd rather have like a show and have a fucking LeBron Miami Heat thing, like, oh, these are my teams, like a college recruiting session, like have him throw on the hat with his dog in the background or something. I don't know, but it's like you said, it's just annoying. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I feel like the MLB definitely wanted to be something like that. They wanted a LeBron type special on ESPN for Otani. And I'm not even asking Otani to be that. I'm just asking Otani. No one's ever even heard, like, it was just a report that said his camp didn't want this stuff getting out. So that even then, is that a leak? Like, is that leaking out to the public now? Now these officials are like too scared to even talk. Even the mention of Otani, you've seen like the Blue Jays manager, all these other officials are like, no comment. And then Dave Roberts is like, oh yeah, we met with him. Like, so I think it's a little bad for baseball. I mean, it's no secret that the MLB offseason is probably the worst, just because of how dragged out everything has to be. But the Otani talk, I hope it gets done. The reports are saying that it's probably maybe down to this weekend, but I'm honestly at the point where nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. I don't think anybody that's reporting anything, they're kind of just giving their gut feeling about it. I feel like the best way we'll hear about it, I feel like Otani will announce it himself. I honestly feel like the team that signs him will just announce it randomly out of nowhere. And then that's when we'll know. And I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing for baseball, but I just think it needs to be done sooner than later.
You can't doubt Jeff, man. He's going to find out. He's going to find out. He's going to drop the bomb. But he's going to be, it's either, like you said, it's either going to be like Jeff or it's going to be some random fucking thing. Because if that thing about the leaks was true, like somebody on his team got executed for leaking that they didn't want like leaks on their team. Like, if that's true, then the whole thing just like from there just crumbled, I think. But it's definitely a different scenario that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, we talked about Otani pretty much every episode since the offseason started. Let's get into another Phillies topic, and I'll let Jake kind of take it away here. But Phillies manager Rob Thompson has signed an extension, just a 1-year extension to get him through 2025. Jake, you're a Phillies fan. You're coming off of back-to-back NLCS appearances, one World Series in that. How are you feeling about the extension?
Yeah, man. I'm a Philly Rob guy. There's definitely a divide sometimes within Philadelphia, based on coaching and management. I mean, you even see it with the Eagles with like, I don't even remember who, Sean Desai and guys like that. It's like, or Brandon Johnson, those guys. It's like, oh, we lose one game and fire the offensive coordinator or something like that. But I went through Brian Sandberg and Gabe Kapler and Joe Girardi and all these shitty managers, and it's just nice to have a guy who makes the guys want to come to the field, man. I think that's a big reason why the Giants moved on from Gabe Kapler, is because he was a decent manager at managing the game, but how happy are these guys when they're getting pulled in this fifth, sixth, seventh inning due to analytics, because, some guy, 300 miles away in an office is telling me I should do it right now. I think the extra year, keep Rob through 2025 is definitely a vote of confidence, it's tough. Like what's the guy that went from the Moneyball A's? He said, "Oh, it's tough to manage on a 1-year contract."
Yeah.
Like it is tough to manage on a 1-year contract, especially. I imagine Rob's pretty set being a bench coach for the last 30 years, but I think it's definitely a vote of confidence in not him, but for the guys. I mean, your guy's going to be there next year. If you show up to work and you don't have a manager or you don't know who your manager is going to be next month, how hard are you going to be working? How invested are you going to be? Philly Rob definitely brought the guys together. I mean, this is a group that obviously they have some connections beforehand and some things in common, but I think his presence definitely was a big impact in that locker room.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It makes sense. I think the Phillies are in a window right now because not only do they extend Rob, they have so many players that are under multi-year
Right.
control. So you kind of want him within that same clubhouse. And I would say once, say if worst case scenario, this window falls apart, then pretty much you get rid of everybody. Like Rob goes, you trade away some guys, let their contract expire, break it up. That's usually the cycle of life in sports. But yeah, I have a bunch of confidence in him. Since he took over the Phillies, he has 155 wins, 118 losses. He pretty much took over a Phillies team that didn't really have a voice. They didn't have a direction, even with Joe Girardi, who is, in my opinion, still a pretty good manager. It's just sometimes it doesn't work in every situation. And I think the Phillies took that firing and they went with Rob and they just took off with it. And we saw, they went all the way in March to the World Series, just coming up 2 games short. And then they kind of pretty much run it right back out. And they were so close to making it back to the World Series for 2 straight years, falling in 7 games. And you can't even really blame him for any of those losses, except for maybe the Craig Kimbrell stuff. But even then, you go to your dogs to pitch well, and if they don't execute, it's the same thing that the Dodgers deal with all the time. I get Dave Roberts is the scapegoat for almost all the Dodgers losses, but I was like, how much emphasis do we put on a manager, and how much impact do they have in an actual game? It's pretty low. The only time that guys really have any impact is probably with the bullpen usage and how they go around that. So if you want to get on Rob for the Craig Kimbrell stuff, you want to get on Roberts for bringing in Kershaw to try to close out in 2019 against the Nationals, by all means do that. Those are mistakes. But I think the track record, even though it's only a short sample size, he's been around the game for a long time as a bench coach. You mentioned it, for a long time, and he finally got a shot to go with the Phillies. And the Phillies are not in an easy division. The Mets were supposed to be extremely well. They're prioritizing. They may say they're not trying to compete in 24, but they're still going to try and transition to getting better. The Marlins just made the playoffs, and the Braves are the Braves. They're in the midst of their World Series championship window where they want to get multiple rings. And for the Phillies in back-to-back years to make the playoffs, knock out the Braves twice, that says a lot about Rob Thompson's leadership. But other than that, I think it's just a no-brainer because, like you said, why would you managing on a 1 year is tough, and just give him an extension. As long as he has that security, at least that reassurance that, all right, I'm here for 2 years. Let's get the job done in 2 years. And then the Phillies, if they don't get the job done, maybe they can reevaluate, but maybe they just keep going on maybe like a 1 year basis, like keep extending him until maybe if he gets to the World Series again, they just throw him at like maybe a multi-year extension, like what happened with Dave Roberts. He kind of was on that first, he got that 3-year deal when he was first hired, and then it pretty much went 1 year by 1 year, and then he got a big 5-year extension. So I definitely think he could be a staple in the Phillies coaching staff.
Yeah, like you said, it's not like they don't have major impacts. Like obviously they have things and decisions they have to make, but and yeah, you can get mad at him for putting in Craig 2 games in a row, or putting in Kerkering in a high leverage spot after pitching 3 innings in the regular season, but like Nick Castellanos went over for 21. Harper, Kyle Schwarber, and Nick Castellanos, shit the bed in the last 3 games. I think it's kind of it's more of a culture thing. Could you imagine if after 2024, if we have another season, even comparable to what we've done, telling these guys, hey, we're not going to bring Philly Rob back. I mean, these are their guys. You see that their clubhouse celebrations. You see the way they talk about him. It's different than a normal manager. And like I said, that's a big reason why I think Gabe Kapler and other managers aren't around, because teams are starting to realize, hey, yeah, we can find a guy that can make decisions. We can do that, but can we have a guy that can actually lead a team, or a guy that can actually bring these guys together and make them a unit instead of just players on a field? I think that's what Philly Rob really does well, and I'm not gonna ever get mad at the things John Middleton and Dave Dombrowski are gonna do, just given their recent track history.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of a no-brainer decision. Whatever he's done has worked. Might as well just give him that 1-year extension to give him a vote of confidence for now. You have, instead of working on a 1-year deal, you got that 2 years to get the job done, which even though the Phillies haven't won the division in quite some time, this is, I would argue, they're still their World Series window. You got to try to find a way to get past the Braves, whether in division or in October, and then you got to take this core and get it to the World Series in a very competitive National League. But pivoting to the American League, we had a lot of big news. Probably the biggest news from the winter meetings. Yankees are trading for 2 outfielders. The first one was Alex Verdugo from the Boston Red Sox, which that's a story in itself. The Yankees and Red Sox making a trade together. That doesn't happen often. And then obviously the big one, Juan Soto officially traded. It was all posted yesterday. It's finally done. Soto is no longer a Padre. He goes to white and blue pinstripes, navy blue pinstripes, to play for the New York Yankees. Thoughts on the deal? We talked about it a little bit with Tim an episode or two ago. Now that it's finally materialized and it's here, what do you think about the Yankees' 2 trades that they made?
Yeah, I mean, the Juan Soto one was speculated for, I think, like most of the winter meetings. It had to come. It was just a matter. We talked about, like you said, we talked about it with Tim. It was just a matter of who could actually do it. They got some guys back, man. Michael King's a dog out of the bullpen. The Padres got Kyle Higashioka will fill that, Austin Nola type role, backup split catcher. And then they got 3 pitching prospects, which they desperately needed. Their farm system has been depleted from all their trades and things of that nature the past few years. But yeah, Verdugo does not fit a Yankee. I even tweeted out, I said it in our chat. I thought he'd be flipped in this trade to San Diego because he fits San Diego real well. That kind of culture. It's a different kind of culture. I mean, I don't remember who tweeted it out, but they said they're gonna have a field day with this guy and their dress code policy in New York, with his chains and his beard and things like that. I think obviously the Juan Soto one's more important, but like I wrote about today in my article, this is the year. If you get halfway through the year and you're in 4th place again because you have no pitchers because you went the Padres route and signed 4 shortstops, what do you do? Because now you've given up 5 players, 2 of which are top 15 prospects in the San Diego system now, 2 of which are established major leaguers. Do you try to get some value back? I mean, are you all in and you just lose it? It's really tough spot for the Yankees. We're gonna see. I think what it really means is they're gonna keep moving. I think we've heard about Yamamoto. We've heard about other guys being rumored there. If this is even like Judge said earlier, he's like, I'm hoping for more moves, expecting more moves. If this has to be their year, they have to buy all in. It's get there or bust for them, because we've heard for years that Juan Soto, just like Ohtani, is going to test the market. He's going to get another big ass payday, just like Ohtani will get. It's just interesting that they're going all in the way they are after what happened last year.
Yeah, the Yankees needed to make a move. And obviously the most logical choice that everybody wanted if he was on the trade block was Juan Soto. And with all the stuff coming out about the Padres and their payroll situation, how they want to slash it, Juan Soto, who I've talked about before, it was due an estimated $30 to $34 million in arbitration, which is going to blow by Trey Turner's record from a couple of years ago. And you can't afford that if you're not going to be fully competing in not only in just the National League West, but the National League in general. So I think it is a tough pill to swallow if you're a Padres fan, but I think it was the right decision because they got a really big haul back. You know, you get 4 pitchers, which you desperately needed, 4 young, controllable pitchers, and a catcher to throw in there as well. And now you still have a really good offensive unit behind them. I still think they can compete for that wild card at least, just because you're banking on Manny Machado coming back. You're banking on Bogarts at least having a bounce back year. You're banking on some of these other guys playing well, and then hopefully everything goes your way, or at least you see improvement or bounce back years, and then you can make it that last wild card. Because once you get to those the last 2 wild cards, I mean, it's kind of like a toss up for a lot of these teams. Like we just saw it, an 84 win team went all the way to the World Series. The Phillies the year prior as well, they snuck in, went on their run. So it's not, it's feasible for the Padres to do the same thing. For the Yankees, though, they desperately needed a left-handed bat. I'll throw some numbers your way. Their OPS against right-handed pitching was abysmal. It was only 683, which was one of the worst in the league. Compared to against lefties, they got a right-handed heavy lineup. They had an OPS over 700 at 777. So this is something that they needed to improve on. And it's been talked about, like, what lefty outfielder, what lefty guy are they going to get? Cody Bellinger was rumored. Alex Verdugo, even before this trade happened, was rumored. And then once that happened, I was like, maybe they actually don't get Soto. Maybe they just like, you know what? We'll take the cheaper route, $18 million for Verdugo. We'll go that way. Throw the dice out there. Maybe we'll make the playoffs. Maybe we'll have improvements. But they get 2 lefties. And they also get another center fielder. They get Trent Grisham, who's a Gold Glover. He doesn't have a really good hit tool, but he's definitely a guy that you can put out there in late innings. Definitely can give the Yankees outfield plan with Judge, putting him in center. I'm kind of a little iffy on that just because of his injury history. So I feel like while the Yankees have already said that Judge is going to be center, Verdugo is going to be left, and then Soto's going to be in right, defensively the best one in there is Judge. The other two, I mean, Verdugo's made improvements, but Soto, I mean, he is not a good outfielder, and putting him in at a premier position in right field, that kind of scares me. But if you want to do what the Phillies and kind of what the Dodgers have done, is once you get to those 7, 8, and 9 innings, put in your Gold Glovers, put in Trent Grisham out there in center or right to lock it down out there. But yeah, they reinvented their outfield, and for good reason. The Yankees had their worst season in arguably 30 years. Am I going to say the evil empire is back? If they get Yamamoto, I will. But right now, I still don't really see them as better than the Orioles. I don't see them as, honestly, even with the Rays team right now with Tyler Glasnow, I would say maybe they're even. The Blue Jays, we don't know what they're doing, but even on paper right now, Blue Jays have probably the most underrated pitching staff in baseball with all the arms they have there with Gosman, Barrios. Who's the dude from the Mets they signed?
I'm not gonna
blanking on his name. Bassett. Oh, yeah, he's on there too. That's a good rotation. And their offense, you got Vlad, who had a bit of a down year. You're hoping he comes back. Bo Bichette, all those guys. So the Yankees still have an uphill battle, and their 4th and 5th starter, they got to get some more pitching now. They had to get rid of some pitching to get Soto, but now they need to go out there in the free agent market, perhaps sign a Yamamoto or get somebody else to plug in there to really put them at the top.
Let me run this by you because this is something I heard earlier. Will Middlebrooks, who obviously spent a lot of time playing in New York, being a Red Sox for so long, said that this Soto could be an interesting move because a lot of times you see left-handed hitters go to New York and say, hey, let me try to put this over the porch. Obviously Soto is a hitter that goes the opposite way a lot. But you've seen declines of left-handed hitters in New York because they're trying to pull the ball. They're trying to get it over that fence. They're trying to hit 45 homers a year. He said it, and he's been there. He's played in that stadium a ton. It's an interesting concept to think that, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this fence is 300 feet. Let me try to get out in front of the ball and put it over the fence. That's why he also said Aaron Judge had so much success, because he knows that if, hey, I get beat by a fastball, I can still hit it out to right field because it's 320 feet out there. You know what I mean? So I just think that's an interesting concept. I don't know the type of hitter that Juan Soto will be. Obviously, he's an elite hitter, so I don't know how much that'll affect him, but I think it's an interesting concept that he brought up.
Yeah, I don't think Juan Soto's signing an extension. I think he's going to test free agency. And I feel like just because this is his walk year, I think he's going to try to be the best version of Juan Soto that we've probably ever seen.
Right.
In his time in San Diego, it's kind of been a roller coaster ride, but even in 2023, he led the league in walks. He hit 35 home runs, had over 100 RBIs. He has a hit tool that's similar to like Ted Williams, kind of Tony Gwynn, like where he would just rather put the ball in play. He could slap a hit one way, but that short porch in right, that's going to be enticing. I said he hit 35 home runs, and that was playing with the Padres, who play in a pretty pitching friendly park. I could see him hitting over 45 with the Yankees. You give him a full 162. His defensive numbers are awful. I mean, I would hope he could try to improve those a little bit. I'm surprised they're putting him in right field. I thought he would have been the left fielder by default, and then put Verdugo out in right field, who profiles a little bit better out there. But I don't know. I definitely think Juan Soto is going to go off this year because, this is the guy that turned down multiple deals with the Nationals and the Padres well north of $400 million. So the Yankees, they want the best version of Soto, but he's going to be demanding a pretty penny at the end of the year.
Yeah, like you said, the way of hitting is just different than most hitters. The way he looks to the opposite field, a lot like Alec Bohm when he was early in his career. He's starting to develop some power now, but it's like you said, it's his contract year. Is he going to try to pull this ball and try to hit 45 homers a year? Is he okay with hitting 250 and walking 130 times and hitting 50 homers? Or is he going to, go back to his 2021 year where he hit 313 with a, 460 on base? It's tough to know, but it's funny that you said 45 homers because that is exactly his over-under this year for 45 homers. So we're going to find out if that bet hits or not. I don't know what you're going to place, but I honestly, I would think under for him because, like you said, I think he's just going to try to hit the ball and not try to do too much.
Yeah, I definitely think a good stat line for Soto. I feel like he tries to get a higher batting average. He's already a good on-base guy. He's going to get you your walk. He's going to get you like a base hit when you need it. But if he can incorporate a lot more power, he may end up eclipsing that 45. You may see one of the better offensive seasons ever, probably this upcoming season, with Soto playing for the Yankees and just having the intensity of playing for New York. I've said it before. I just feel like Soto was born to be a Yankee. Like, especially when he went from the Nationals to the Padres, like he never really looked good in a Padres uniform. It looked weird. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a Dodgers fan. It just didn't make sense. And he was so intimidating on the Nationals. And now you're putting him in New York, where I feel like he's going to thrive off of the idea of being on the Yankees, being a Yankee, and hopefully, I mean, it's really World Series or bust for the Yankees franchise, no matter what year it is. So I feel like he'll definitely play off that pretty well.
Yeah, it's his third team in 3 years. We saw a little bit of a stumble in his first year in San Diego or half year in San Diego after he was traded. He'll end up having most likely 4 teams in 4 years. So, he's used to the relocation by now. It's just, what is that stadium and what is his mindset going into this year?
Yeah, I definitely big things for the Yankees in 2024. I don't think they're done yet. Brian Cashman has already said that. So maybe all the stuff that we said about him in our previous episodes, maybe it finally got to him, and now he's going to make those big boy moves to
Definitely
get the
listen.
Yankees back to where they need to be. Ending on the winter meetings. Obviously, we didn't get a lot happening. Even the Juan Soto and Verdugo trade didn't really happen until the last day. It wasn't even made official until late last night. What were your thoughts about the winter meetings? Like, is there an issue? Is there a solution to speeding up the MLB offseason? I just kind of want to get like brief take about this year's winter meetings.
Yeah, it was surprising, definitely. I was not expecting after last week with Tim, expecting to come in and be like, "Hey, nothing happened other than Soto," because we all really expected Soto to be traded at that point. Even we said that was basically the only team he could be traded to. I think I don't remember who brought it up, but I think what's happening now is the winter meeting is like a trade show. It's like, hey, I'm gonna bring all my guys, and I'm gonna bid them the fuck up. It's like I'm watching Storage Wars, man. It's like we're all standing there bidding. I saw somebody say that's why the Dodgers haven't done a ton in the last few years, because they know their value of their prospects. They're not going to let the other teams, bid them down and undervalue their guys. I think the winter meetings, I don't know if this is really the problem between teams. I can't really tell you why players aren't signing. I think this year's a existential circumstance with Ohtani, because that's such a out of left field guy, having the best player in baseball, being a free agent. But I think a lot of the problem is people are expecting things to happen in the winter meetings. They're like, I got to get something. I got to do something, which is why I think the Padres got such a big haul for Juan Soto, is because they're like, hey, we got to get this over with. We can't do this anymore. We got to do it. So I think the winter meetings now are more just with all the communication channels. It's not as important as it was, 20, 30 years ago. But I think now the value is being affected by, the market and the supply and the demand. It's just basic economics, man.
Yeah, I definitely think I mentioned it yesterday on the Bleed Those podcast. The winter meetings weren't supposed to be this free agent and trade show. It was really just a meetings for baseball personnel from all these teams to get together to kind of talk shop, like get ideas of what players are worth, the values, get the ideas of trades and free agents down, and then hopefully, because everyone's there, maybe you guys can come together on a deal. Maybe we can make some blockbuster deals. Maybe we can make some smaller deals. But the other side of it too is that now the MLB, that's when the Rule 5 draft takes place, the lottery takes place. Like there's other things that are incorporated in the winter meetings now. I just think baseball is different with the offseason. I feel like everybody wants it to be the NBA and the NFL where these guys sign in 1 or 2 days. But I think it's a little bit different because in the NBA and the NFL, there's not many guys that are signing multi-year deals like over 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 years, where a lot of baseball players are kind of looking to say, all right, I really just want to sign with this one team, get a no trade clause, and then play to the rest of my career. So their agents are shopping around. Like Ohtani is seeing other teams' offers to get like an idea of one, how much he's worth, how many years he can get, and how much guaranteed money he can get as well. So that's just the things that are going to happen in the MLB offseason. We would like for people to sign quicker. I always say if it's dragging on past Christmas, then we got some issues here, because we all remember in 2019 when Harper and Machado didn't even sign until like February. That's bad. If Ohtani's waiting until then to sign, we got to even have a bigger conversation about that. But yeah, I mean, I get excited for the winter meetings because I just want to see the rumors, but I just think because of how Ohtani was this year, everybody wanted the big fish and talk about him. You could be disappointed that nothing happened, but I just think at the face value of what the winter meetings are for, it's not supposed to be some type of big spectacle.
Yeah, it's different though, because the biggest thing I think the difference is between the NBA and things like that is obviously the salary cap. When LeBron and James is a free agent, or these guys are free agents, what they're going to get. They're going to get the max. They're going to get the super max, whatever, the most they can get. possible is it's just a matter of, where do they want to go. Fucking some team in theoretically could offer Ohtani $1 billion. Obviously that's not very likely, but that could still happen. Like you said, these guys are out here bidding their players up. They have 30 GMs within, one building within them. They can go around and talk to every team and, shop their guy, which is why I think, like I said, it's like a trade show. It's like, hey, this is my, prized possession. Like, what are you giving me for it? It's like you're selling a car, man. It's like I'm back home again.
Yeah, I definitely, the winter meetings, they came and went. Obviously, a lot of free agents are still out there. A lot of trade rumors are still floating around. It all hinges on Ohtani. Hopefully, he signs sooner than later. Our luck is that he probably signs late tonight. But other than that, that's pretty much been it for this live. We talked about a bunch of things, winter meetings related. Definitely, there's still a lot of work to do for both of our teams this offseason as well. Check out the website. Jake did post a new article on the diamondclub.blog, basically highlighting everything about the Juan Soto deal, why it makes sense, going over all his numbers as well. Great read for there. And then just keep a lookout for our social medias and our updates for future episodes. I assume when Ohtani signs, we'll do something probably around then as well, just to kind of go over it. But other than that, I have nothing else to say regarding this episode. Anything for Jake, you to close on?
Yeah, man, it's just nice to be live, man. Nice to have some interaction. Thanks to everybody coming out. You see Greg, Tim, even Joey's out here, man. Nice to see you, man. Appreciate the support. Yeah, we'll be back. We're doing this. I got the setup. I got the flag up. We're ready to go, man. Just keep in touch.
Yeah, well, that will about do it for this live. I'll definitely want to probably keep something doing this, especially with a little bit more interaction, getting all people commenting, supporting the page.
Right.
But yeah, just check out the website. That's where we're going to be posting articles. You can follow us on Twitter. That's where we're talking a lot of baseball. But other than that, that's been this live edition of ClubCast. We'll see you guys next time.